This is Benny Chapman, the creature from the Black Lagoon, withoutyourhead.com.
Welcome to the station of decapitation without your head. I'm Nasty Neil, and I'm joined by Bill Sachs, a writer and director of The Incredible Melting Man Galaxina, and a bunch of other cool stuff. It's very cool to have you here.
Well, thank you. It's cool to be here.
Cool. Nope.
It's fun.
It is.
Better
hopefully.
Be fun.
Yeah, or else it'll be short.
It's always fun. You have to make fun everything you do. You have to have fun.
I agree 100%.
It doesn't always work, but it doesn't always work, but you try.
Right, that's the goal. If it's not fun, why do it?
Yeah, it's always.
So
what?
I said, if it's not fun, why do it?
Oh, right. Kind of broke up. We don't have this problem. I don't know. It's your Skype, maybe.
It could be.
I'm on a phone.
Yeah.
All right.
So, speaking of fun, just the name itself, The Incredible Melting Man, like, to me, that's a very fun title, and it hooks you right away. How did you come up with the name, The Incredible Melting Man, and do you think that the name itself helps the movie?
Yeah, well, actually, it wasn't the first title.
Oh, really?
Title. I had a bunch of titles. I usually write down hundreds and then somehow pick one. But originally it was Night of the Ghoul, because I kind of, even though people say, it was based on all these different movies, I really liked Night of the Living Dead. Mm-hmm. And I kind of had him walk around like someone from Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah,
and then it kind of evolved into what it became. Mm-hmm. I don't know the moment it happened.
Yeah.
But it was obvious when it happened. Mm-hmm. When the title appeared in the brain.
Mm-hmm. Was he always then? Did he always become the Melting Man the same way in your mind? Was it always going to be aliens? Well, not necessarily aliens, but up in outer space.
Well, I don't know. You might have heard the story that the whole part about Saturn wasn't mine.
I didn't know this.
Because my version opened up with the nurse running down the corridor and smashing through the door, and then you just see the hand and you slowly reveal the melting man. But that whole thing about Saturn, originally as a comedy horror, and then the producers read the script and said, let's do this movie, and then I'm shooting. I said, well, they said, this isn't like a regular horror film. I said, no, did you read the script? He said, yeah. I said, well, do you notice, do I give away spoiler things? Because, the ending and turkey leg thing and all that, that was in the script. And it's funny stuff. And they couldn't figure that out, so we started arguing. So, in post, they wanted to do this new stuff with Saturn, and I didn't want to do it. And my thing is, you didn't know that he was in outer space until the very end of the movie. That's they said they gave it away at the beginning. So, what was your question?
I forget now. So, I was wondering, because you said that he moved around like a zombie from Night of the Living Dead, so I was wondering if it was always that he did become the Melting Man from Venus, from outer space, or if there was some other idea originally.
No, he got it from being in space, but you didn't know he had been in space and been an astronaut until the end of the movie. Mm-hmm. And that was like a surprise ending, because you hear the news thing of this new spaceship going up, and you go, oh shit, it's going to happen again. But that was given away in the first scene.
Yeah.
And which I had nothing to do with. I was off doing something else, and they went off. And that's the problem when you make a movie, which I won't do anymore, working for someone else, because I've learned, it took me a whole career to learn that if you can't go by your gut, you can't really work to your best. Mm-hmm. So the last movie I did, The Spooky House, I was in control. Mm-hmm. Except I wasn't, because it was a kid's film with Ben Kingsley as a magician. And we had screenings for kids, and I wanted to cut something. So I had to screen the little focus group of little kids. And this little girl in a pink dress, about 7 years old, stood up and said, "You can't do that, because if you do that, then something else won't happen." So I didn't do that. So I still didn't have final cut. You know, but let the audience have it, not the producers.
Right. So, well, there is a part in Night of the Living Dead where they do, they mention outer space, so you never really know how they become zombies in those movies. So it could even been a Venus in the original Night of the Living Dead.
Well, I let people know at the end, but that's part of the surprise ending.
Mm-hmm.
Would have been. So, but all through it, you don't really know, but there's, the general coming after him, trying to get him. So there are hints.
Yeah.
But now it's all just, let's tell everybody right at the beginning. And then that's that.
Yeah. And I assume...
Whatever. The most, sorry. What?
No, go on. You go on. I'll say after.
No, you can. I don't remember. What most of the movie, that is there.
Mm-hmm.
It's just they framed it differently, and took out some of the comedy and added what they thought was serious.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a spoof on, because I grew up watching horror movies, in drive-ins and stuff, and it was a spoof on those.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted it to be more spoofish.
Yeah. I think there's still stuff in there, because I always find it a funny movie, and I always thought maybe just because I'm weird or something. But just like the idea of, he just starts eating people for no real reason. He's melting. Why does he need to eat people? But I find that very amusing.
No, come on. That's a pure medical thing. You have to replenish. So
I see.
And they won't let him in restaurants. I mean,
that's very true.
Who's going to let him sit there?
Yeah. Plus, it wouldn't be much a movie if he just walked around melting and he wasn't eating people.
No, you have to eat and replenish it. It's normal.
Right. And I always got a kick that his name's Steve, because a lot of the movie they're chasing him, which is also great because he's being chased and he's very slow moving, which I always found entertaining. And they're always just yelling Steve, which is like a really common name, and I always found that very funny about the movie.
Well, that was, because he was Steve. He still is
I know.
Steve. He's just becoming less Steve all the time. And if he ran fast, he'd probably melt faster. The movie.
That's very true. Yeah. And the running zombies aren't fun.
Or he would have to eat more people.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard when you're melting to run.
Yeah, exactly. I used to collect the plastic mask when I was a little kid with the elastic bands around the back. Do you remember when they put out the Melting Man mask?
Yeah. Well, you want to? Am I allowed to be pissed off?
Yeah, you can say anything you want. Yeah.
Or internet or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, because I own a big piece of that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Well, 7.5%, plus other things and merchandising and everything. I never collected. They never paid me.
No.
So I got pissed off about they had melting candles and masks and costumes and all that, and I'm supposed to get, it's hard to survive if they don't pay you.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm pissed about all that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't enjoy seeing those things.
No, I can't blame you. No, I don't. I would totally understand. And just a couple weeks ago, I had people from a recent movie, Terrifier, and they were the same way. And this is, a movie that just came out last year. All these people putting stuff out, and, they don't even ask their permission or anything. And the director's like, it's nice, but, they're just using my stuff without asking me or paying me.
Yeah. It's kind of standard in this business. So that's why I started, raising my own money and make my own movies, but I hated that. And then I distributed Spooky House myself, and I hated that even more because it's all business stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But you have control, but you have other problems, and it's boring to do all that.
So,
because you can't win. I've kind of always looked for a partner that would handle all that, but I've never found one that I would trust that would do it or could do it.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, But you know, the one thing that I went to film school, and it was all great, and they taught you all about film, but it didn't teach you about what happens when you get out in the real world and deal with certain people.
Mm-hmm.
I found there are three kinds of people in the movie business. One's in it for ego, one's in it for money, and then they're creative people. And the other ones, you know, don't really treat them right, generally.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are some. I haven't found them.
Mm-hmm. Well, on the show, I've had a lot of...
You want to get back into
No, well, along those lines, I have a lot of people on the show who, you know, are making their first movie or just made their first movie, and often the same thing comes up. You know, they'll get the movie distributed, and either they won't get anything, or they'll actually lose money, and so I believe all these things still happen on all levels of independent movies.
Yeah, they do. And one thing they should learn is really get to know what this distribution contract says, because, for example, the guys that made Blair Witch Project, it was made for like $35,000, and it made, I don't know, $250 million. They never collected their money because it wasn't in profit, according to the distributor. Told to me by the distributor. But the person that did it said, I made one mistake, and he said, I gave the creative people bonuses based on variety box office, and he said he had to pay that. He was upset.
Yeah.
I'm not saying names.
Sure.
So it's hard, but you know, you get to do something you love to do, and it's not supported, and a lot of people like stop doing it because they've been screwed so many times. I know a lot of people have gone on and done other things. Sorry, you want this to be cheerful?
No, I want it to be whatever it is, as long as it's interesting.
It is what it is.
Right.
Do I sound bitter? I think I'll have... You notice I have... This is like Severed Head Week or month, or Severed Body Parts month.
Body Horror Month, yeah.
Body horror?
Yeah.
Well, if you notice, in 2 movies, I have producers' heads severed. But both times they wanted to do it, and they came to me, which I didn't do that. But in Melting Man, it's the producer's head that goes over the waterfall. In Galaxina, it's the producer's head on the platter in the alien in the human restaurant. So, and both times they came to me and said, "Can you do that to me?" I said, "Sure." It wasn't me that did it to them.
Right. Now, when you watch them, do you get any satisfaction from that? Say, hey, there goes that guy's head over the waterfall.
Well, not really.
No. All right.
I don't know. I don't want to answer that.
Fair enough. But along those lines, though, when you mentioned Night of the Living Dead, I mean, that's, famously, they lost all the rights to that, and people did whatever they want with Night of the Living Dead for decades. Which is, obviously very sad.
Well, you know what's interesting, though? I was in a restaurant about a month or so ago with my kids and my wife, and we all met up, and because they're kind of grown now. And I got a text from somebody that said, "Oh, look, they're making Galaxina into a TV series." They are. They didn't tell me anything about that. And so then I started getting really upset. And then I started doing research, and somehow I found that because so many producers and songwriters and book writers and novelists got screwed by the publisher and distributors and music companies, they put into the copyright law that after 35 years, the writer, because in America, when you sell something, it goes into the copyright becomes, the writer is technically the person that bought it. And you don't have any rights anymore, copyright. So after 35 years, they give you a 5-year window to get your copyright back. And you have to give 2 years notice. So I looked into that, and I had just made it, and I'm doing that. So in March of 2020, I can do Galaxina again. So I can do a sequel. So I'm actually working on the script now.
Very cool.
To Galaxina. But if anybody out there has something they sold and it's been 35 years, they can do that. Stephen King's getting a lot of his book rights back now. That way.
Yeah, and right now it's a big thing with Victor Miller, the writer of the Friday 13th, the original film, and because they had to stop making the video game and the new movie because there was this. That's how I learned about it, because it's been 35 years since he wrote it, and he didn't have the rights, so now he's trying to get the copyright back.
Right. No, that's a good thing. So
yeah, I agree.
If anybody has them, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
And Galaxina, again, it made a lot of money for the company, and of course, they didn't even finish paying my full salary. I had a deferment. I didn't get that. So it makes me feel good. Now they're not doing the TV series. I've been actually approached. Well, two people didn't approach me. They suggested I could do a half-hour comedy show for TV with it, but I'm working on a script to make her a superhero.
Mm-hmm.
Galaxina superhero movie.
Yeah.
So I can go either way. I might, because I have time, I could do this and write half-hour pilot thing.
Mm-hmm.
I can do whatever. So that's just fun.
Yeah. When I watched Galaxina today. I'd seen it a long time ago, but I watched it again today. And when I was watching it, I really thought, like, you must be a big fan, even though it is kind of a parody of science fiction, that you kind of make fun of it. But at the same time, you could tell that you really love science fiction, because there's so many things in it I think you'd only know about if you were into science fiction movies, if that makes sense.
Well, I don't know how I could make the movie if I wasn't.
Sure.
You have to be.
Yeah.
No, I am. I love it. Again, that's what I grew up on.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up on sci-fi and horror movies and things like that.
Yeah. Even just like the shots.
I also did go to school, but...
Right.
What?
I was saying, there's even the shots of the ship, because all science fiction movies always have that big, long, epic shot the first time you see the spaceship, and it just sticks on it. And it was like, I was writing Galaxina too, so I thought a lot of the look and the way it was shot worked as a science fiction movie. There's something about it.
It's actually...
The shots of the movie and the look of the movie is like a science fiction movie of that era, so even like the science fiction-y kind of look of it works, even though you're kind of at the same time making fun of those same movies.
Well, those shots were spoofs of those shots.
Right.
And do you know, I'm the first director to ever use a computer for visual effects. And they were testing it on that. And the one shot of the ship going around the planet with the bird ship with the other ship hiding behind the sign, that was the first shot ever done with a computer, because we were doing everything by hand. Mm-hmm. And the guys, John Shealy and Bill Tonderu, wanted to experiment, so we let them try it on ours. We had to pay them, but not much. But we, and then after that, they went on and did the first Tron.
Oh, wow.
System.
That's pretty wild.
But I wanted the shots to be, the look of the film to be organic. Mm-hmm. And so I have one ship that's based on a bird. Mm-hmm. And the other one is, I was in a supermarket and I saw this weird thing, and it was a Jerusalem artichoke. And that's what the second spaceship looks like. It had these weird round things on the side and everything. And then if you look at the bridge of the ship in Galaxina, it's kind of like a mouth. It kind of looks like that.
Okay.
The Galaxina version I'm doing for the next script is even more organic.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. So
that's all I'll say.
Yeah.
I don't.
How long had you wanted to do did the sequel just come about now because of you heard about the series, or was it something you always thought about doing?
Well, people have always asked me for years and years, are you going to do a sequel? And I don't own the rights. I sold the rights.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And by the way, it doesn't work if it's a work for hire. It has to be something you sell. It's a copyright thing. If it's a work for hire, you don't get the copyright back. You never really had it.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's something you wrote and sold, like an independent contractor thing or a sale, then you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
So they've always asked me. I've always wanted to. I got a Crown called me, and Mark Tenzer called me and took me to lunch because he wanted to do a sequel years ago, and but it was, the same. I was now in the Writers Guild, Directors Guild, and they wouldn't do that, and so I didn't do it. But I wrote a little treatment for the sequel, even though I'm kind of, maybe it's a little similar what I'm doing, but it's more Galaxina than the first one.
Right. So
it's more Galaxina-ish.
So Galaxina, you said it's like a spoof, a parody of the science fiction movies that you watched at the time. Will the sequel be like, would you parody like science fiction that's happened between the first movie and now? Like, the different new Star Wars movies, or are you going to stick with like kind of the classic science fiction?
No, I'm just trying to, what I want to do is, I have kind of a couple of rules. One is, this is how it should be done now, how else can you do it? So instead of being a sequel, being a parody, I'm just trying to break new ground and do things that I haven't really seen. Although every time I get an idea, I talk to somebody like my son who's totally into, he does visual effects, and he's totally into all this. And he says, "Oh, I saw that, and so I read that in a book." So it's hard. And then another friend, Dave Fine, who actually was one of the producers on the King Cohen movie. And he says, "Oh, yeah, that was in something, and that was in something." And so I try to twist it and change it into being even something different than what I thought of. But it's hard because there's a lot of it out there. So I'm not trying to spoof it. I'm trying to get away from that, although parts of it are spoofs because it just comes out that way.
Right. Interesting.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I guess they came into my brain and it stays there, so I use it. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not stealing. There's one thing about mind being taken and put in a new body, and I thought, "Oh, this is a great new idea." And then my son said, "Oh, that was in John Scalise book," who was, I think, he's written a whole bunch of stuff. I don't know if you've heard of it. Old Man's War. He wrote where they take old men's bodies, and they put. Well, they give them a new body, but they keep their brain. They figured if they're going to die soon anyway, give them a new body and they use all the knowledge. So I thought I had something like that for Galaxy. And said it's in his book. So then I'm reading the preface to one of his other books, and he says where he stole that idea from other books. So, nothing original.
Right. Well, if he stole it, then you can.
So
it's fine for you to use it. Yeah.
It's homage or something.
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But so everything starts someplace. And but I try to read a lot of sci-fi, and it's fun because you can do anything you want. Really, I have a thing that's on somewhere on my Facebook page, or I have a William Sachs Entertainment Facebook page, and I have my rules of filmmaking. Rule number 1 is there are no rules. It's also like rule number 18 or 17 or something. I teach go back there because there aren't. You can do new stuff. You can break ground.
Yeah. You mentioned the King Cohen documentary, and I had some people on from that. Did you know Larry? Do you know Larry Cohen?
No, I don't think so. It's possible I met him, but I don't remember.
Yeah. It's a really good documentary, though.
Bill Lustig, Maniac Cop guy, who you did.
Yeah, well, I'm a big fan of William Lustig. Well, I like his movies.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I'm just sipping my tea.
Good guy.
Yeah.
I think I only met him once or twice. I don't remember. We had a mutual friend.
So, you mentioned, growing up and watching horror movies and science fiction movies. What were some of the ones that you remembered the most and kind of made you want to make your own?
I That's a hard question because there's so many, like the Quatermass, the ones in the tube in London in the subway. They find these things. I like that one, and I've been accused of copying that, but I don't see anything similar to that in any of my movies. Jesus, so many. Creature from the Black Lagoon. Name some, I'll tell you if I remember.
Well, Creature from the Black Lagoon is a fantastic movie, and one of the highlights of doing the show for me was having Ben Chapman, who played the creature on the land scenes on the show. He was a super nice guy.
It's funny, I don't know if we can get into this, but I've done a lot of film doctoring jobs and when they fire directors, and I got called to do one called Octoman, and it was like so horrible I would but that was kind of like, I guess, a takeoff on that. And it turns out Rick Baker did the Octoman, who I got for Melting Man. I don't know if he wants me saying that, but whatever. But it was, the whole movie was just so bad. And then I got sent from New York. I was living in New York at the time, and with my wife, and we were meeting the producer. There were two producers, but one, I don't want to say their names. So one of them, I got warned that he's a little manic depressive, so he starts shouting at you. Just let him shout. So we're in there, and I said something like the movie wasn't very good, needed a lot of work, and the guy flipped out and starts screaming. We're in the Polo Lounge of the Beverly Hills Hotel. This is like my first real trip for work to Hollywood, right? And he's screaming in the Polo Lounge. Everybody's looking, and the guy said, the friend of mine, producer, said, just sit there, just take it. And he's screaming and all that. I said, I waited like 5 minutes. I couldn't stand it, and I started screaming back. So here's this like, screaming match in the Polo Lounge. So we left, and I'm ready to go back, and then I get a phone call, and the guy wants to hire me to work for him. The screaming guy, because I spoke back to him, and I wouldn't do it. So I never did that movie. But that's the story. There are a lot of stories.
Yeah. Well, how did that come about that people will hire you to fix their movies, to doctor their movies? It seems like a very specialized thing.
Well, after film school, I went to San Francisco for a while, did a short film, which was supposed to be a feature, but they only had enough money for that's 14 minutes or something. Anyway, and then my films from film school, one of them was getting actually famous, and it was put in the archives of the British Film Institute. It was called Breakfast, and it was sent to festivals all over the world and won tons of them. So I thought, I'm getting famous. So I had to get from San Francisco back to London because I thought I'm famous in London. So somehow I had no money, and I'm in San Francisco, and I got a ride to Mexico, and with a friend who was living in. Well, I rented this house in Sausalito. I had a room in the house, and he and his wife were in another room. He was a lawyer in Mexico. He just finished law school, and his wife was American, so they came to America. He was working as a dishwasher to earn money to go back to Mexico and open his law practice. So I went with him, and then all kinds of things happened on that trip, which is a whole other movie. But anyway, after getting dysentery and things, and I wrote a short story called Black Water in the Bus, which I don't want to get into. I got back to New York, and I was going to try to earn money to get to London. So I got out of the subway, and there was a building right by the subway entrance on Madison Avenue, and I walked in to see if there were any film companies. I had a can of film that was that film, Breakfast, and I walked in, and it said Canon Films on 2 floors. It's a big company. I'll get a job there. So I walk in, and there's one little room with 2 desks, and there was an editing room on another floor, and that was Canon.
Awesome.
And I walk in, I plunk my film down and said, I'm famous, I need a job. So they gave me a job as a PA And I had to drive back and forth from Sag Harbor in Long Island to the movie lab in New York with the dailies, and I brought actors back and forth, including Bob De Niro, who was starring in it.
Mm.
So I get back, we finish shooting, and they keep me on. They're going to teach me to be an assistant editor. I had done a little of that in San Francisco, working for a company called Imagination Incorporated that was owned by Bob Godfrey. I think he got an Oscar for a Lenny Bruce animated film, The Masked Man or something. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so I was working on a movie as assistant editor, and it was awful, and they fired the director. So they didn't know what to do with the movie. So I said, oh, what if you do this, this, and this, and shoot like for 3 days? And this? They said, okay, now you're the director. That's how I became a director. I got, other than my short films, I got promoted from assistant editor to director on the same movie. And so I fixed it, and then they started getting films for me to fix. They were buying Swedish films, and all kinds of films that I should fix. Mm-hmm. And I fixed them, and they all seemed to make money. Mm-hmm. And one was a thing called The Gap that was had Susan Sarandon and Peter Boyle in it, and that was awful. They fired the director, and I fixed it. And then they said, "Do you want to share director's credit?" I said no, because it wasn't really my movie. You know, I was at film school. It wasn't purely me. Mm-hmm. So the director, who wasn't going to put his name on, saw it and put his name on, and I didn't. And it was Joe, and it was John Avildsen, and he ended up doing Rocky because of that. So that's what. And the script I redid got nominated for an Oscar without my name on.
Damn.
Anyway, so then they promised me a bonus. They didn't pay me, so another guy offered me a job to go to Italy and buy 20 movies and make them so you wouldn't know they were Italian, because TV wasn't buying Italian movies anymore. So I had to go there, and I took these movies, ones that you wouldn't know are Italian, they're like Westerns.
Yeah.
Like one Western, I put my friends' credits on, names in the credits that weren't even in the movie business, because they had permission to do all this. And I put at the end, the producers wish to thank the people of Sedona, Arizona, cooperation in making the movie, and it was made in Spain. And I brought actors back like James Colburn and redubbed them. And the dubbing the sync is really good, but it doesn't necessarily make complete sense. But it fits the lips.
Sure.
And I put camera noise in sometimes so you'd think it was real. Yeah, I did all that stuff for 20 movies. It was great training, and it was fun. I was in Rome for a year and a half. I met my wife there. We're still married. And met Mark Damon, who I did my first film with, There's No 13.
So when you said
that story, you asked.
Yeah, no, it was great. I enjoyed that. Well, so I was just asking specifically about fixing movies. Was it always movies that were they always completely done, or was it different levels of like where you had to fix them? Like those sound like they were completely done, and then you did different things in like post editing. But was it ever a movie that wasn't quite finished? And then
a lot of them were not done. I had to do half the movie, like Exterminator 2. The director was who I knew, and he's the one that asked me to come in because he was way over his head. And they had shot half of it in New York, and they were like 3 times over the budget, and they only had like 45 minutes shot. So I had to take over the movie, and first thing we did was we moved it to L.A. because New York was so expensive to shoot, and I think they started with 2 Teamsters, and they had something like 45 by then. And I came out here and made a deal with a Teamster guy I knew here, and we had 2 for the whole time. They were great. But one big problem was it's a garbage truck with a plow, which actually originally was my idea. And we couldn't bring the garbage truck to California because the road restrictions are different. In New York, they were made out of steel or metal or whatever kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And here they're fiberglass bodies because of the roads and the weight. They didn't want too much road damage.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to get special permission to bring the garbage truck. And then Robert Ginty, who was the star, well, before I left, twice on fixing jobs, I had to get the star out of the motorhome because they wouldn't come out because the director was making them look so bad. And I actually agreed with them because, you know, they're on the screen, and if they're looking stupid, it doesn't help their career.
Mm-hmm.
So Ginty wouldn't come out of the motorhome for the one shot that was still, while it was still in New York. So my first day I come there, so he wouldn't do it. I said, well, he's gone. He's gone. I'll tell you what, you direct the scene. And he like ran out of the motorhome.
Mm-hmm.
He was ready, and he did. He directed that scene and became a director. But when I brought it to L.A., I couldn't get Ginty, and because he was working on another movie. I think it was a David Winters movie, I'm not sure. And the producers said, well, if Cannon gives him $50,000, they'll release him for like a few days.
Mm-hmm.
So I love fixing films because it's I don't like video games and board games, but I like real games.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, to me, it's a real game.
Yeah.
You have to come up with a solution. So I said, okay, I don't need him. And that's how I came up with the welding mask and the flamethrower. Because there's one shot in the original Exterminator
mm-hmm.
where Bob Ginty's working on the garbage truck, and he's welding something, and he lifts up his mask, and you see it's him, and he's got a little torch. So he's in the movie, he's a vigilante with a welding mask,
Uh-huh.
and in the end, he lifts up the mask, and you see who it is. So I have guys running around with the masks on,
Mm-hmm.
all being the Exterminator because I couldn't get the actor. So, you know, it's how you solve these problems that make the whole thing fun. Then we had a big credit fight, and by then I was in the Writers Guild, so I got a co-writer credit, but I wasn't in the Directors Guild yet, so I didn't get a director credit. So if you watch the movie, probably my favorite shot, or one of in all my movies, is the end shot of Exterminator 2,
Mm-hmm.
because we were at a steel plant, and he's walking down this long tunnel, and I had them put a sheet down the end with every light we had shining in, so it's like this silhouette walking down the tunnel, and he's dropping his gear until the end. He's almost transparent, and then my name comes across. Additional scenes directed by William Sachs, and flames and everything. So that's how I took care of that problem.
That's very interesting.
Anyway, so I did like half that movie.
Mm-hmm. I was asking before you went to the next one would it be possible, or even anything you'd be interested in doing, to go back and change or fix the Melting Man into how you wanted it edited?
Well, yeah, but I'd probably have to shoot new stuff because I don't know what they did with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be fun to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't own it. I
Oh,
can't do it
okay.
unless someone buys the rights to it.
Right. All right. All right. Well, if anybody listening wants
But it
to
would
chip
be
in,
fun to do.
yeah. So, well, before I interrupted you there, I'm sorry, but you were talking about some other movies that you did some fixing on.
Yeah, but it wasn't interrupting me. You have to, otherwise I just keep
All right.
babbling on, so don't worry about it.
Fair enough. Let's call you the fixer.
Well, I fixed Leprechaun.
Oh, really?
And, well, Servants of Twilight, I had to get Bruce Greenwood to come out of his motorhome. But he was again right, because the director was really... I don't want to... Well, I will. That was actually funny. I got called by the completion bond company at a restaurant. They called me, come here right away. It was the next morning. Come in the morning. You have to... This director's screwing up. And I said, well... Okay. I didn't know the script. I didn't know anything about it, but I appear at the stage the next morning, and I walk in, and the crew's there applauding as I walk in. They must have known what was happening. Anyway, so I go in. They said, "Well, what's happening?" "Well, they're shooting now. He's using pigeons, and he says they're going to look like bats." So okay, so I go in, and he's shooting around with flying pigeons. So I guess someone told me I was going to be there. So I said, "Well, let me see the shot list." I don't have the shot list. I was supposed to go and like supervise him or something because he was still there, and it doesn't really work if I have to go in and take, to tell the director what to do. It's not really a good thing. Anyway, so I don't have a shot list. He just does stuff. Okay, fine. So somehow I was telling him something. He said, "I'm going to call the producer." So he calls. This is Trimark. So he calls the producer, and he gets on the phone. So he came in. He's trying to tell me what to do. Blah, 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 blah. So this is a short version because it goes longer. Goes into the next day, but you're just getting the short version. So the phone call is the part that I'm getting to. So he says, and he hands me the phone. He says, "Joe wants to talk to you." And I said, "Okay." It's like he's sitting there, he's standing there with a smirk on his face. So I take the phone. I said, "Hi." And Joe says, "Fire the fuck." So I said, "You want me to do that?" "Fire the fuck." All right. Okay. So I hang the phone up. So the director says, "Well, what did he say?" I said, "He said, fire the fuck." So we left. And then, and it turns out that, to be completely honest, when I was editing, I used a few frames of the pigeons because you just saw a fluttery wing. You couldn't tell what kind of wing it was. So I've given some credit there. But anyway, that was The Servants of Twilight. And then they got me to do Leprechaun, and they kept sending it to me, a VHS at the time, and I'd watch it. "I don't want to do this. It's awful. I can't fix it. I can't fix it. I can't fix it." And they kept offering more money until finally I said, "Okay, I'll try." But it was so bad, I said I had to make this into a comedy, so I put funny stuff in. And I couldn't even direct it because I was in the Directors Guild, so I had different people do different scenes. The cameraman did a lot of it.
Yeah.
So then we had a screening, and people loved it. And then they made like 5 sequels. And I didn't even ask for points in that because I figured it's never going to make any money. And not that I would have gotten them anyway, but it made Trimark so rich that they're like quarterly profits went up 200% on the stock market or something, and they put money into and bought into I don't remember now. Big company. It's become a giant. Lionsgate.
Okay, yeah.
I think it's Lionsgate. So they're like part of Lionsgate. And Mark Amin, who was in charge of it, I liked him. He's a good guy. One of the few.
Yeah. Did you watch any of the sequels to the Leprechaun movies?
No. Sorry.
You're not.
Did you?
I've seen them all. Yeah. I probably agree with your first assessment of Leprechaun. I don't know if it could really be fixed, but it's they're out there. People love them, though. People do love them. Mm-hmm.
Well, you make it a little humorous, so it's tongue-in-cheek and it's fun, and it's not trying to be serious. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that was the intent in the beginning or not, but that's what I did.
Yeah, that's weird because I can't imagine
like
that
25 movies.
Uh-huh.
A lot of the movies I fixed, I'm not allowed to say what they were because people didn't want to know they were fixing, but I've done like about 25, 30 movies like that.
Yeah.
And, so whatever. And then other people get rich and famous and whatever happens. But I'll tell you something. I like fixing movies. One main reason is because they leave me alone. On my own movies, they interfere because it's their money. And they hire a director because they don't know how to direct, and they try to tell them how to do the movie. But anyway, on those, they've given up. because they've had their input. The movie is terrible, and they just don't do anything, and they just leave me alone. So that's one thing.
Yeah.
I've never had problem with producer fixing a movie because they're grateful.
It's really weird, strange that they would have like trust in you to go fix the movie and leave you alone, but not necessarily just to direct your own movie without any interference. That's very weird to me.
Well, they haven't been beaten up yet. I mean, it's like when they make a movie and it goes wrong, they're desperate. But when they give someone the movie, it's still being created, so they feel it's theirs. And then they try to tell you what to do, and then it's like, and I've learned I can't work unless I can go by my gut. If I have to guess what someone else is thinking, then I can't think straight. That's why I've never done TV. I've been offered TV a lot, and I've always said no. Because you have to, I have heard it's like a traffic cop. I don't know if it's true. And there's some great TV out there now. Maybe it's different now. But you have to fit into what the producers have set up, and I don't like doing that. I like to do things that haven't been done before, and the TV shows have all been done before, Yeah. So it's kind of a different approach I have than not just being on set, put the camera here kind of thing.
About TV, though, real quick, I do think the last, 15 or 20 years has been a lot of great TV shows, kind of like a golden age, I think, of television
Yeah, no,
shows.
I watch them.
Yeah.
I like watching them. I don't know if I'd like directing them.
Right.
But maybe if I do this Galaxina show, I don't know, that might be different.
So you said it won't be Galaxina won't be a parody, really, but I assume it'll still be a comedy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, action comedy. There's a lot of action in what I've written so far. And I hope it's funny. You can't tell until you... Well, when I did Van Nuys Boulevard, for example, I thought stuff was funny, and we had the opening on Van Nuys Boulevard in the theater, and people were laughing all the way through it, cracking up, and I thought, some people as crazy as I am, they think it's funny. So, you don't know. I mean, you think it's funny, and you laugh to yourself, but it has to be tested, I guess. I think that another thing, there's a thing that bothers me about Galaxina is I had a relative who used to read me. Every go there, he'd read jokes from the Reader's Digest or some comedy book or something, and they were like awful jokes. So I thought I'd do that with Captain Butt, Avery Shriver. I'd have him say these stupid jokes, and that's supposed to be his character. But what people think is I wrote those jokes, and I think they're funny. They're not supposed to be funny. They're supposed to be his character, but I screwed up there. So people say, "Oh, these jokes are awful. He can't write jokes," but that was on purpose.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful what you do. You have to think it through.
You mentioned Cannon a couple times. What was it like to work with Cannon for Cannon?
Crazy. Well, Menachem was crazy, but he was interesting. And I didn't know how to even describe it. I was like fixing their films and doing trailers and stuff. I used to do a lot of trailers, like I did the Joe trailer and some other films. In New York, I did a lot of trailers. Beyond the Door is one of my favorites. You ever see that trailer? Anyway, Cannon was... it was fun and it was horrific. But I wrote a script with Menachem, which was an experience. And, it was a learning experience. It was actually good. There were two Cannons, The first one was owned by some guys in New York. And then the Israelis bought it, Menachem and Urim. So when I worked in New York, it was different people. But it got purchased probably because of my work on Joe. They gave them money, and they took over the company in L.A. So I worked for both of them, and I don't remember how I got to the second one, but it might have been probably Exterminator 2 things. That's probably what did it.
Yeah.
Because maybe they knew about me from the first one or something. I don't know. But it was fun. It was a very good learning experience, but I bitched and moaned. They did that documentary, Electric Boogaloo, and I got called in and I bitched and moaned so much they didn't put me in it. They just gave me a thank you.
Oh, really?
I think they wanted to be a little more positive about canning, because I had to sue them to collect money, and I got it that they owed me. You know, it's the same old thing. I mean, Menachem used, after I fixed Exterminator 2, he'd like take me around and, this is Bill. If anything broken, Bill fix it. If the elevator broken, Bill fix it. And he's our hero. And then he didn't pay me. So I went. I finally collected it. But and then I wrote a script at his house once. It was a movie that could have been good, and then they screwed it up again. It was hot chili. I did it in Mexico, and I wrote the script with Menachem. I worked in his office. I worked at his house, and of course, afterwards in an interview, he said, I don't know who he is. Saying something. But anyway, I'm in his office. I heard all kinds of crazy conversations. Like he's on the phone with some agent. I don't care who she is. An actress is an actress. And he slammed the phone down, and he had been talking about Katharine Hepburn, who did the movies. He ended up doing the movie with her. You know, it was like crazy. I'm at his house, and we're in the middle of working. He gets up, come outside. We go outside, and there's a pool back there, and it was in Cheviot Hills, which is near Fox Studios. Anyway, and there was a yard and a wall and another house behind it. And he points, see that house? Boaz Davison. Spit on him. So we're standing like 100 yards from the other house. And he goes and spits, and it goes in the pool. So I spit into the pool. And then we go back in and go back to work. So it was fun. It was crazy fun. And, you know, but I did learn a lot. But anyway, he screwed that movie up because he changed it and all. The hot chili. Parts of mine and parts of his. So it could have been a fun comedy. And I've heard a lot of people like it. I almost didn't put my name on it. And then someone said, well, if you don't put your name on, you don't get residuals. So I called the guild, take my name off. So I left my name on, and I kind of made a lot of money in residuals on that movie. I don't know who's seen it, but now I think there's a little cult thing about that movie because it's so crazy. So, but it's a mixture. You can probably pick out my parts and his parts if you watch it. Maybe not. So we did that in Mexico, which was fun.
Yeah. Before you got online, did you know that a lot of your movies had cult followings?
No. I was surprised. I actually just saw about the hot chili one like a few days ago. And then I didn't, you know, I kind of thought Melting Man did. I didn't, I'm not, what do you mean by before I got online?
It's just because I think like, without the internet, you might not be able to come into contact with people who are, you know, following the movie, I guess.
Yeah, how did that work then? How could you know about a cult?
That's a good question.
The internet, I don't even.
They just come up and knock at your door and be like, "Hey, you know, I love this movie." I don't know.
Well, there've been a lot of screenings. Well, I went to Comic-Con, and every once in a while I go to the conventions. I don't really like doing that because I love the fans and I love talking to people, and people give me gifts. Like some guy made an etched glass of Dorothy Stratten in a drinking glass. I'm afraid to drink out of it. I don't want to break it. But, I mean, people give you things, and you have great conversations and lots of great people. So I love doing that. But then I don't like charging for an autograph. I hate that. So I have a guy, and he's not doing it anymore, but, you know, would take care of all the business stuff so I wouldn't have to think about it. But you talk to someone, you have a nice conversation, and then they have to pay you to write your name down. So I don't like doing that, so I don't go a lot. And then I don't like traveling all over the place. Pain in the butt. I've done enough traveling.
Yeah.
I do it I enjoy it once I'm there, and I love talking to people. A lot of good creative people that should be doing movie stuff but are doing other things. So,
how about
you
for
ever
those
go to
people? For
the
those people,
conventions?
yeah, I do. I've actually started doing more festivals because I think it's. Well, I used to do the conventions a lot. I still do some of them, and I used to host the panels and stuff. I had fun doing that. But primarily when I go, it's to get interviews and stuff, and usually the people are there to sell their autographs and photos. So I always kind of feel in the way, like taking away from people, from the fans. And so the festivals, I think, are better for me.
I don't like selling my autograph. I hate that.
Sure.
I don't want to charge, but they make you. You have to, I guess.
Right.
Well, that's how you get money. I don't know, because they pay for your whole trip there. Leave mine.
Yeah.
Put you in the hotel and feed you. But I love being there, but I don't like the process of it. But I love talking to the people.
Yeah.
But anyway, before internet, there were a lot of screenings. Like Melting Man would have screenings, and I'd go to those. So I guess that's how it worked.
Yeah.
But internet's changed a lot of things, hasn't it?
Definitely. I grew up watching
Good and
Melting
it's
Man.
bad.
Oh yeah, of course. I wouldn't be doing this without the internet, but there's definitely a lot of negatives to the internet too. And I grew up watching the Melting Man. It was something about I always liked. And I got to see it every Halloween. They do this 12-hour horror movie marathon at the Coolidge Theater in Brookline in Boston. And it's midnight Halloween till noon the next day. Oh, really?
I've been there because my sister went to Boston University. I used to go visit her.
Oh, nice.
I've probably been to that theater. I don't remember. I didn't see Melting Man there.
Yeah.
I know that. Probably wouldn't have gone.
Right.
I don't like watching it. I don't like watching my movies when I finish them because all I remember is the horrible things that happen making it and the nightmares that you go through and not sleeping. Melting Man, we did it in like 14 days. We shot the whole thing. And we worked, 20 hours a day or feels like. And the day we finished shooting, I went to sleep and woke up like 25 hours later. It's like it's so exhausted, and then it's just like you're walking around like zombie, like
Steve.
Night of the Living Dead. The whole crew is Night of the Living Dead by the time you get done.
Yeah. So how about Rick Baker? Obviously a great makeup effects guy, but did you know that at the time? Was he like known for that, or I'm not sure. Was that one of his first movies? Maybe his first movie. I don't
remember, but I know I remember I don't remember what he did before that, but everybody wanted him, and I think he asked for a lot of money and got it. I remember when he got it, we had to have this dripping stuff, the ghoul glop we called it, and I remember his poor wife was home with making vats of this glop, and she'd have to deliver it, so I went with Rick to buy a pickup truck, and he bought a new pickup truck so he could bring the stuff back and forth to the set. So we went to a Nissan dealer in Universal City or something, and bought, it was a little pickup. But his wife would appear, we'd be running out of glop, and the Melting Man would get dry, and we'd be waiting for her to come with more vats of glop, and she was mixing this stuff at home, and it just went fast, and I had to spray it because I wanted to reflect the lights. And it was like it was a big mess, but it was fun. But he did a great job. He was great.
Oh yeah, it still looks
really
cool. How about Alex Rebar plays Steve? How did he take to wearing the makeup? Was that a long process?
Not well.
No, he didn't. Okay.
Not well. It was a horrible process, and I think it started at Rick's house, and then he'd bring him to the set at a certain point. I remember, and he used to smoke a lot, and the cigarette couldn't be near the makeup, so he'd have this long cigarette holder. I remember one time they were late or something, and what had happened was that Rick was driving with him, I guess in that pickup or a car, I don't know, but anyway, and there's this melting man with a cigarette and a long holder, and they got in a car accident because people were
wow.
So, but he didn't like wearing the makeup. In fact, I don't know if anybody would. I guess like that guy that's in he's in the Star Trek, the new one, and then he plays always tall, thin guy that always plays monsters.
Oh, I know who you mean. He's like Mama aliens. And stuff. He was going to be on the show, but
well, he likes it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard because you have to sit there all day with this thing on. Anyway, and Alex, I don't think, took to it too well. And in the end, he's walking, and near the ending, he trips over something. That was a real trip because he couldn't see.
Mm-hmm.
So it was pretty nightmarish for him.
Yeah. Was there any scenes you just couldn't do because he didn't like the makeup?
No, I don't remember that. Probably couldn't do it because we didn't have time to do it.
Sure.
I don't remember that.
Yeah. Did you know Alex
one
before
thing
the movie?
Cut out, which I knew him. I met him when I was in Rome because I was at a screening of a movie, and he was in it. And turned out he was sitting next to me. I didn't know it was him because he became this other character. So I thought that would be good to be the Melting Man because I just really was good. Mm-hmm. I was sitting next to the guy and I didn't know it was him in the movie. He had mustache and no mustache. His hair was different. I don't know, but I just didn't recognize him at first. So I thought, wow, this guy can do the Melting Man. Mm-hmm. But I should have asked if he was claustrophobic.
All right. So, you were talking about a scene that you had to cut out, or they cut out of the movie?
Oh, yeah. Well, Jonathan Demme was in the movie, and the Melting Man's eating his stomach out, and they cut that for some reason. I don't know why. Cut a lot of stuff out. Did you know he was in the movie?
No, I didn't know he was in the movie. I'd like to see that.
In the movie. He plays, well, you see him at Nell's house when she does the freak out and goes catatonic. Mm-hmm. He plays her husband that goes in first and gets killed. So you just have a quick shot of him going in, but you don't see him get killed and chewed on anymore.
That's really weird, especially if they wanted it to be a more horror movie. You think they would, if they wanted it to be a more serious horror movie and not comedic, you wouldn't think they would have cut out a scene of someone's getting their stomach eaten out.
Well, it's kind of lifting up the intestines, and maybe it was too funny. So I didn't want it to be too horrible.
Right.
I don't remember. I don't know why. Who knows? Maybe they didn't. Maybe Jonathan told him he didn't want to be eaten on television or the movies. I don't know. Because he was a friend of the producers. That's how he got it. Maybe he told him, don't show me. I don't know.
Are you surprised they left the end then? When because to me, it's always one of my favorite scenes is when the custodian comes in and just shovels him up and throws him in the garbage can. And that's a very funny scene. And if you're going for a more serious movie, it's a very a big contrast to anything that would be serious.
Nothing surprised me, but I think it's my favorite scene, too.
I love it.
It's great, and they probably had to leave it because there's no other ending. And how else would you end it? And it's my favorite thing. And that was my kind of point about the movie. But making fun of myself,
Sure.
This was all just a big fun goof thing, supposedly, and now it's partly a fun goof thing. But other things remain, like, they think it's his arm and everybody's freaking out and it's a turkey leg. See, you're giving spoilers, so now I can do it. I tried not to.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to spoil it. I'm sure people listen to watch Incredible Melting Man. At least they should have, but in a world of so many remakes, has anyone ever wanted to remake The Incredible Melting Man?
Again, I'm being asked all the time, but I don't own the rights.
Oh, I see.
Why don't you get the rights back? We can make it.
All right. I'll get some people on.
I'll give you something to do, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think MGM has it now. Call MGM if they have it.
All right. Get
I
them on
think
the line.
it'd be fun to make, and I can do it the way I want to do it.
Mm-hmm. I'd love to see it. There's something about it. It's always a lot of fun to me. No, I saw it at the Coolidge.
If I had owned it, I'd have done it.
Yeah. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
a guy had on the show the other week, Seb Godin, and he named his company the Melting Man Films. When you see something like that,
Yeah, I saw that.
What's that make you think? What's that make you feel like?
Well, it makes me want to do a sequel. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why did he call it that? Is he going to do a Melting Man movie?
He loves the Melting Man. He loves slimy monster movies, and the Incredible Melting Man's one of his favorites.
Well, good.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you something. No, I'm not going to tell it because it's something I could do, but I'm not going to say it. I'm combining it now with the Galaxina thing. Sorry.
Oh, all right.
I'm putting it in the Galaxina thing. I don't want to give away the idea.
All right, fair enough. You could tell me off the air. I won't tell anybody.
Came out, but I was only on your show.
Mm-hmm. What was that? I'm sorry.
Did you say I should tell you? You won't tell anybody?
Right. No one listens to this. They won't know. So.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Well, I should stop talking and save my breath.
That's my version of throwing the man into the garbage can. So say no one listens to this.
Yeah, I know. I got it. I don't believe you anyway. Like I knew who really to go in the garbage can. That to me is what the movie was. So if they took that out, it would have been really disastrous. Everybody likes the ending. I haven't heard anybody. Well, probably some people don't like it. I don't know.
Just a minute. Yeah, it was during that Halloween thing though. It was a surprise screening for Melting Man. For the Halloween screen I was talking about, was 12-hour marathon, and they always have 2 movies that tell you, and the rest are surprises. So the Melting Man was a surprise. At like 3 a.m. the Melting Man came on. I was like, oh my god, I love the Incredible Melting Man. So I was very happy.
Yeah, and it's still making money. I'm not getting it. Do you know how much money that movie made?
I'm sure.
I mean, it's just been playing for all these years. The same with Galaxina. It's still playing. I had a friend who distributed Flesh Gordon. Mm-hmm. You remember that movie?
Yeah.
It was a porno, and then he bought it and made it R-rated and called Flesh Gordon. And it went on a double bill with Galaxina, and he made a fortune. And his was the number 2 movie in the theater. Have that first and second, whatever. Anyway, so I called the distributor. I said, oh, that made money now. It didn't make any money. Funny, the number 2 movie made money, but the number 1 didn't. Okay. So whatever. But anyway, why are we talking? Oh, I have a question. It's funny. What is this, the missing limb thing you're doing?
Well, the name of my show is Without Your Head, and I always just call it the Station of Decapitation.
Yeah, I got that.
But this month we're doing body horror, and since it's a man who's melting, I call it body horror. Mm-hmm.
Just want to tell you about my first movie.
Okay.
There's No 13.
Mm-hmm.
And that has a lot of body parts in it, just so you know. I have missing arms and legs and hands, and it's not a horror film. Mm-hmm. It's kind of about Vietnam.
Oh, okay.
So I think I was thinking about this today because my wife said, you have missing limbs and things in a lot of your movies, and I'm trying to figure out why. I mean, I have it Galaxina. I have mannequin parts, like a mannequin arm that a guy uses as a weapon, and things in Melting Man. I've got heads and arms falling off, and Galaxina, I have the head. And I was trying to figure out why I do that. And it's weird because I was in college and I kind of had to leave because I got in trouble for hypnotizing somebody and I couldn't wake them up and I had to go to the hospital. They told me not to do it anymore. I bought this book for 99 cents on how to hypnotize. I was only there a month. And I had people walking around the campus with pins in their hands and stuff, and they told me to stop, and I didn't stop. And this one guy couldn't wake up, and they had to call an ambulance. So this is getting somewhere. So I couldn't wake him up. And they call me into the deans. We told you to stop. It's illegal. We have to punish you. The police said we can take care of it. So you have to leave and you can come back in January.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was studying business, which I hated. I didn't care. And they said, but we want to give you tests. So I took these tests. I said, okay, you come back in January and go to art school. It's okay. But I got fed up waiting and went back home again. And it was before Vietnam, and I just ran off and joined the Air Force because I wanted adventure, because I wanted to write.
Mm-hmm.
So I said anything but a medic, because it's all, blood and stuff and bedpans, and I didn't want to do that. So, of course, they made me a medic. So then I found out if you get good grades in the medic course, when you go to the next course, you can pick your specialty, and there's some that you don't have to do yucky stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, I'll do that. So I got good grades in the class. I came out second, and the first guy had been to pre-med, so I thought that was good. So I'm running around here. That's why I'm out of breath. Not running, but walking.
I got you.
Place. Anyway, so they said, well, there's this cool thing where you get boots and wings and stuff, and it's like an aeromedic, or now they're PJs. Mm-hmm. And I said, I'll do that. I want boots and wings. And so I did that, and it was like really, hard. But I got through that, and I got sent to London. Well, because what they did was if you get good grades in that class, you can pick where you go. Mm-hmm. So I came out on top, and I got London, right in the city. And there's a long story how I got that, but I got that. So I walk in the office. This is leading towards somebody. I walk into the office. The first day, I go into the office. I didn't even sit down. They said, oh, you have to go to the morgue and get footprints from this dead pilot. He just crashed into a mountain at 750 miles an hour. And it's like I haven't even taken my coat off. So I go. They take me to the morgue, and I walk in, and there's this guy laying there on the slab with purple from the neck up. Mm-hmm. I said, is this him? And the mortuary says, no, that guy choked on his own vomit. He's in the sink, in the bucket in the sink. So I go, and there was a piece of a foot in the bucket in the sink.
Oh,
now, this is true. This isn't in the movie, although I put the scene in I put it in There's No 13.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so I look, and there's a piece of a back and a piece of a foot. And I kind of said, I don't want to touch this thing. Can I put gloves on? And he said, no, it's soaking formaldehyde. It's cleaner than your hands. So I put 2 pair of gloves on. But the problem was, in order to get the footprints, when pilots go in the Air Force, they have to get footprinted, because in crashes, sometimes the only part they find is what's in the boot, because it protects the foot, supposedly. But anyway, it did. So I had to amputate each toe. This is like, right there the first day. and I had to fill it with embalming fluid and roll it on a fingerprint pad. So maybe that's why I'm obsessed with body parts.
Uh-huh.
And that was real.
Yeah.
And I just guess I'm obsessed with that. From that, I can't figure out why. But that was the only time that happened to me, and it was my first, I was a new guy, give him that job.
Sure, yeah. You're like, well, what am I in for? I have to stay.
Anyway, and the hypnotizing thing is in another film I did called Hits. I have Elliot Gould hypnotizing Karen Black. So I try to use real life in the movies when I can.
Yeah.
Hits was another disaster. I made this movie, and then the producer, whose husband financed it, they started getting divorced, and they took the movie. They hid it. And eventually he sold it in some fire sale, and it was about juveniles getting into gangs in juvenile court, and the company just changed it and made it a gang movie and ruined that.
Wow.
So,
yeah,
another disaster.
I know, you're kind of laughing about that stuff now, but back in the earlier days, did that stuff really bother you? When they'd either change your movie or...
It still bothers me. It still bothers me.
Huh.
Wouldn't it bother you?
Oh yeah, I don't know. I probably wouldn't be able to deal with it. So.
I mean, I've always I've had to go to court. Like, I was representing that movie in divorce court like it was their kid.
Mm-hmm.
It was crazy. And I had a big lawsuit. I've been to court twice, and I didn't want to spend the money, and I always represented myself, and I never lost.
Mm-hmm.
So I did get accepted to law school when I was in college, but I didn't go. Because I got to page 20 of a book they had, a friend had, was in the law school, and it was all about contracts, and that's when I went to film school.
Mm-hmm.
So then I ended up doing contracts all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I had a producer recently try to steal a script from me, and a big rich guy hired this big expensive lawyer, and we had this like a 1.5-year battle in court, and we had a trial, and I'm there questioning witnesses, and I won. I beat the lawyer, big expensive Hollywood lawyer.
Wow.
Because I believe if you're prepared and you're right, you'll win.
Mm-hmm.
If you're wrong, you might not win, but I wouldn't try it. But if you just get your point across, and then the judge wouldn't listen. I had to kind of trick the judge into listening, and he finally, because it's a long story how we did that. It's a fun story, but I won't get into it now. A Hollywood Reporter wanted to do a whole story on it, and I didn't want to do it because I had enough of the thing. And but that's a movie there, but I don't want to face it. But yeah, it's like getting in this. I hate to say it, business, because I originally thought it was an art. Is a war. Every time you do a movie, it's a war, and you have different battles to fight. I have a little model bulldozer on my desk, and on the wall in the production office when I did Spooky House, I had a picture from a Caterpillar catalog of bulldozer crashing through walls, because big stones flying and everything, because that's what happens when you try to do something. People just keep building walls. You get through that wall, and then they build another wall, and you just have to keep knocking them down and crashing through it to get through it. And that's what it is. And through that, you try to remain creative and try to have fun.
Do you think, it's kind of a serious question, people who aren't artistic, do you think they have a bitterness towards people who are creative, or do you think it's strictly they're just trying to make as much money as possible, even if they have to be immoral about it?
Well, I think a lot of people who aren't artistic think they are artistic.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody admits that they're not. And I think that they think, well, the Hollywood golden rule, probably the golden rule everywhere. It's he who has the gold rules. Right. So that's, remember I said before, they're the business people and the ego people. And they're probably a lot of the same people, because their egos thinks they know more than you do, because it's their money, and they made, it's not even their money usually. They got it from someone else. But they try to show power, and they really believe it should be that, and they make you do it, and they try to. So that's the problem. It's so hard to find a producer. I had found when I did a film. Well, there are two titles. It was Concrete War and Last Hour. I really liked that film. It's a little action picture. It did quickly for not much money. It's got Michael Pare and Shannon Tweed and Danny Trejo. And the producers were great on that. And, I got to do what I wanted. The writer got mad at me because I changed the script a lot. But I liked that little film, and I had fun doing it. And actually, I never used to drink coffee. And on that show, we had a crew come up from Louisiana. We shot it all in L.A. in the Eastern Columbia building. It's that green building downtown. And we just shot at night only. And the crew from Louisiana, I used them on 2 movies, a grip crew. And they brought a grip PA with them, who brought one of these great cappuccino machines, with the eagle on top and all that. And the production designer, who was also the producer on it, Richard Sawyer, he'd been the production designer on Three Amigos and Two Jakes, anything with a number. Anyway, a bunch of movies. He built every location inside the building. We kept moving around the building. He'd build a coffee shop. Like, it's nicer than a Starbucks, you know, it's really nice with neon and stuff. And we'd be drinking cappuccino, and I started loving it. And then the guy would walk around with trays of cappuccino, and we were so wired. We had a 20-day schedule. We finished in 19 days. We had nothing left to shoot. We're looking for stuff to shoot. So, also, it was really well prepared. I did a shot sheet for every shot in the movie that I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that movie just went smoothly, and the producers were great.
Mm-hmm.
Harold Rossi was the producer, and Richard Sawyer. So, you know, when you have a good backup, you can do a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You should watch that movie. So it was Concrete War of the Last Hour, also called.
Mm-hmm.
But that's one of my favorites.
So,
and it actually was one of the top-selling videos when it got to the video stores.
Oh, cool. So, for people
I don't even know if it's on DVD. What?
I was going to say, for people who know you from some of the cult movies, what would be some of the other movies that you would like them to see that they might not know about, like A Concrete Wall?
Concrete.
Mm-hmm.
War. Not war.
War. I'm sorry.
Well, I'd like to somehow. The problem with There's No 13. That was my first movie. It was done for like no money in 35 millimeter, and we think we did $40,000. It was the whole thing in 35 millimeter. We had to buy the film, and I got the equipment, you know, invested, donated. The lab did it. When I was in New York fixing movies, in New York, everybody wants, like probably Massachusetts, they want a kickback.
Uh-huh.
And so when I bring work to a sound place or a lab, they'd always offer me money, and I'd never take it because it's, you know, it's their business. I don't take it. Just I need the lab. They're good, so they use them. But then when I needed stuff to make my first movie, I didn't have money for it. They all came in and they donated it. So, well, for points. But anyway, I made this movie, and it was about fantasy, surrealistic fantasy, based on a guy who wanted to make films and get women. And it was kind of all these weird scenes. And in the end scene, you find out that he's in a veterans hospital with no arms and legs. Mm-hmm. And you just, because he talks to the camera with white behind him, it turns out it was a pillow. And that's why I said a lot of body parts flying around, because one scene we have a severed foot and hands, and anyway, but it's a comedy-ish, black comedy. But what happened was it got sent to the Berlin Film Festival, and they loved it there, but there were kind of riots because it was an American film. This was during Vietnam, even though it had an anti-war thing about it. Mm-hmm. And we were nominated for the Golden Bear, and they wanted to give it to us, but they were afraid of riots, so I didn't get the prize. But one of the judges told me this and gave me his own little sign thing and a great review. But that movie was in storage. The storage facility lost it. So I have nothing of it but a 3/4-inch tape.
Wow.
So I'd like to get that movie back.
Mm-hmm.
It did come out in Italy, and so someday I might go to Italy and see if I can find a negative. Mm-hmm. Internegative I sent there, and remake it or release it or something.
Yeah, yeah.
But that movie is the one I'd really like everybody to see. But I don't have it to show them. I have a crappy copy made from a crappy ripped up print.
Mm-hmm.
So that to me is the thing I like out there.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe remake if I was going to do that one. Because it's kind of a odd movie.
Yeah. I like to see
Not
it.
horror, but parts missing.
Yeah. It's a horror show, but I like all movies. I don't just like horror movies, so I like any kind of thing, really.
Well, I do too.
Yeah.
I like most kinds of movies. Like, a lot of movies.
Yeah.
And I've tried to, that's one thing I don't want to do. I didn't want to get stuck in only doing horror or sci-fi. I tried to do, like, I have a kids' comedy with Spooky House. And that went to the Chicago International Children's Film Festival, and it won the Best of the Fets and Children's Jury Prize. And first time in history of the festival, it was unanimous amongst the kids. And I also try to do new things. Like in Galaxina, I use the computer for visual effects. I also use infrared ectochrome that no one's ever used before. And I didn't have money for a lot of visual effects, so I used film stock that changed the color of the skies and the grass and stuff. And Dean Cundy, great DP, and I went out with still cameras before we started shooting and did experiments with different filters and different times of day, because it's heat sensitive as much as light sensitive. And we had to keep it frozen for 8 hours before we were going to use it, because it would be affected by the heat. And we found the best time to use it is between 10 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. But of course, we were shooting until 7, 8 at night because we had no money. Yeah. And some of it's muddy. So I used that in Galaxina. In Spooky House, I did it with sound. I used, I have a scene that we built a set on those things that turn cars around in a car dealership. Sure. We had one of those. We put a high-powered motor so it would go fast. And we had the whole set turning around. And out of music in the theater or at home, if you have the right sound system, it goes around the whole room. And we had in the theaters, kids, because they had a theatrical release, kids would get up and dance in the aisles and spin around. And that was hard because to get it, I don't know if you know how Dolby sound works, but you have the front, right, and center surrounds and the two sides. And this was 6.1, which had a discrete rear channel. In theaters with 5.1, you notice speakers in the back, but that takes the side information in the back. Problem with what happens to send it to the back in the 6.1 is when the right and the left speakers are even, but that also causes phasing, which makes the sound go away. So in the sound mix, we had Dolby engineers, and everybody took days to figure out how to do it. And finally, the sound mixer figured it out. So I try to do things different that people haven't done whenever I can. That's that.
Yeah. I didn't know Dean Cundy was the worked on the movie. That's very cool. Former guest on the show.
I wanted somebody that was technical because we had to get around a lot of problems without spending money, and he was great at that. He was really good. Yeah. Did a great job.
Yeah. He went on obviously to do a lot of big stuff. Yeah, and because I had him on the show, and he was, he did stuff for Jurassic Park and Who Framed Roger Rabbit. So, a guy that's, and both those were like new technologies at the time. So it's interesting.
Well, he's very, very technical, and that was actually I needed that, and I got him for that.
Yeah.
For example, we had to have a hologram. And I'm trying to think, how can the guy speaking and then the girl in the beginning in Galaxina, and they're floating in the air, and I'm thinking, how can I do a hologram? And I realized, well, hologram's 3-dimensional anyway. This is 2-dimensional, but how are we going to do it? And Dean used the old-fashioned camera mirror thing, where you have a mirror splitting the image in front of the camera, and we got. In other words, I don't want to get into it. Someone just look it up. It's an old technique, but there's a angled mirror in front of the camera, so the image can be projected on the mirror, and then the camera composites it in the camera onto the scene behind it. That's a quick version of it. But anyway, and he knew to do that, and not every DP probably would have done that.
Yeah.
So we did it cheaply. We shot the character on video, and then we screwed it up, put lines and stuff so it would look whatever. Yeah. And then we used the mirror in front of the camera. We had a TV monitor with the image reflected on the mirror, which shot through the mirror onto the transparent kind of mirror and put them into the scene. under
cool.
a black tent thing.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. How hands-on were you for designing like the different the looks? Well, you said the one ship was off like a I forget what it was now, a vegetable you saw at the supermarket. But how about like the aliens and stuff?
Yeah.
Were those like stuff that you thought?
I kind of. Well, Chris Wallace is great. He did the aliens. I probably told him what I wanted, and he did them. But I was kind of the production designer. I think I have gave someone art director credit who did a good job, but I had the whole vision of what I wanted things to look like. I don't remember how specific I was with the creatures. I think Chris came up with mostly that.
Yeah.
He's terrific. He and Rick Baker are terrific. And then the guy named Kenny Myers worked with him, some other people. I had good people on the movies. I always try to get the best people, even if you don't have a lot of money, and really fight to get good people.
And not too long after the movie,
I had the look in my head.
Go on. I'll ask after. I was asked about Dorothy Stratten.
No,
but
I don't remember what. Oh, I was just going to say that when I write a script, I watch the movie and I just write down what I see and hear. It's in my head. And my problem is the scripts are usually too long because I write down everything I see and hear, and I have to kind of cut them down. But so I try to get my job as a writer, director, and producer, if I do that, is to get what's in my head onto the screen through people. And that's why I have to write it down so I can have words to say what I see. So it's easier. I can tell people that, but the more information I give them, the easier it is. So I watch the film and write down. That's what I do. So that's what I'm doing now with the new script. I'm watching it.
Very cool. I'm very interested.
I don't know where it's going to go.
I'm very interested in seeing it. I look forward to it. Not just because you're here. I actually very interested. So Dorothy Stratten.
The new Galaxina?
Yeah, Galaxina. I was definitely interested in seeing what you do with it.
Well, I have to go raise the.
Sure.
I have to go raise the money for it. That's the hard part.
Have you ever thought of using your powers there for you can hypnotize someone into giving you some money?
That's a great idea. I'd probably end up like getting in trouble like I did the other time. Right. I did it. Yeah. I think I'll try that. I did it actually when there's another horror story. Funny, but never mind. It was when I was in the Air Force. I left my book behind, and some guy did it and hypnotized someone and went on leave. And the guy was standing there, and they called I wasn't there. They called the psychiatrist, and he told the guy, he didn't believe he was hypnotized, told him to fall on his face, and he did, and broke his nose, and then somehow. But that wasn't me. It was the book. Actually, in the film Hits, which was originally Judgment, they keep changing titles. I have that scene, and it's the same book, and I still have that book. So maybe I'll go try that to get money. Walk around hypnotizing billionaires.
And then this interview will be used as evidence in a court someday.
Yeah, that's why I can't do it now. Thanks. Or you'll be implicated. You'll be in the next cell.
So I hate to ask about this, but
anything else? Huh?
I hate to ask, but Dorothy Stratten, not long after the movie was murdered, like, did you stay in touch with her after the movie? How close were you to her?
First of all, it was the day the movie opened.
Oh, wow.
That she was murdered, and they pulled the movie for 3 months, and not so they wouldn't jump on it, which I thought was right. I also we were so rushed, I wanted to make a few changes, which I did in that time. But then when they released it, Bogdanovich, who kept lying about stuff, said they were harping on her murder with the movie, so after pulling it for 3 months. So I had a big problem with Bogdanovich because somehow he wanted to say he discovered her. And I didn't care about discovery, but he wanted her in his movie first, and he was trying to pressure her not to be in Galaxina. And there's big battles going on. He was calling Playboy, and he was calling her manager, and trying to get, and she just wouldn't budge. She was great. And by the way, you know, the movie Star 80, her license plate was Star 80. It wasn't her license plate. They drove from Canada in her old Mercury, or his old Mercury, and her license plate was Galaxina.
Oh, wow.
And his license plate on the Mercedes she got for being in Playboy, which he drove, was Star 80. So, anyway, and then in his book, Bogdanovich said how we treated her badly. She cried, and none of that's true. She had a great time. Yeah. And said she froze we had a solar observatory with the scene with the bikers. And that was a solar observatory. It's very cool. You could look at the sun through it. Anyway, said how we had her chain tied to this thing, and she wasn't tied. She just stood there, and when it looked like she was tied because it was a PA holding the ropes when we were shooting. And she had a big coat on in between. She wasn't freezing. So that's like craziness. So that was another fight, another wall, another bulldozer needed. So.
Yeah, that's too bad.
But I didn't really stay in touch with her afterwards. I was busy in the editing room all the time. I didn't stay in touch with anybody. Sure. And then it happened the day she was, the movie opened. Oh. But her husband, I knew him, and every time he'd come to the set, we were shooting on a stage, he'd appear, and it was a concrete floor, and he'd come with cowboy boots with spurs on. And then she'd freeze the minute he stepped on the stage, and I have to have him kicked off the stage every time. It was crazy.
Yeah. That's too bad, though.
And he wasn't at all like Eric Roberts was in Star 80, because Eric Roberts played him as one of these talky hustlers, and he never talked. That was what was creepy. He'd go in a room like we had Christmas party or something, and he'd come there and he'd stand against the wall silently staring, and he wouldn't have his back away from the wall. And when they did a TV movie about her, they asked me about him, and Bruce Weitz, I think, played him, and they asked me what he was like. I told them, and he really portrayed him the way he was like. So. But she was a sweetheart. It's sad.
Yeah, definitely.
I used to have lunch with her, I had lunch with her in her trailer every day, and we'd talk, and she'd come in crying in the morning, usually. And she'd say, I know it looks strange, but he really loves me. He has me on the pedestal. He'd do anything for me. This is stuff she used to say.
That's good. So
that was the serious note.
Yeah. So, besides Galaxina 2, do you have anything you're working on currently?
Yeah. After I did Spooky House, which I wrote it with my wife, produced it, directed it. I hired producers and I had to fire them because we caught them stealing money.
Jeez.
And we were in Canada. So I took over. And then I started having deals with distributors, and the contracts were all like, let's steal your money. So I raised a little money and started my own distribution company and released it. We did a theatrical release, and it did really well in the few theaters we had it in, like 30-something theaters, and it did really well, outgrossed the #1 movie in the country at the time, but because it was all over the country. And then when I went to video, the video company took it and went bankrupt, and that became another wall that I haven't really recovered from because they just took everything. And right now, I got another video company to do it, and then that company went bankrupt, and it's Alchemy, and it's a famous bankruptcy in Hollywood because they have all my materials for that movie. So now I have another company I'm talking to about releasing it. Actually, they did the King Cohen movie, and I want to see if I can raise some money and do a 4K and do a new release of the movie back in theaters.
Oh,
so I'm working on that, and I have a horror thriller script that I finished, but I want to write the book first, have it as a book, and then maybe do the movie. I kind of got burnt out doing movies because when I wrote, produced, directed, and distributed the movie, and it was all business stuff, I didn't really want to do that anymore. I don't really want to work for anybody anymore. So I've been doing other stuff like commercials and, little things and writing.
Yeah.
Did some writing projects for people, but I've been taking it easy and enjoying things. But now I'm bored and I want to get going again. So that's why I'm working on the Galaxina sequel thing.
Very cool.
And then I have this book I'm trying to write, but I stopped to do the Galaxina script when I got the rights back. Well, when I will have them 2020.
Well,
So,
what's the book?
So you know about that
biography
thing with the cop? Huh?
Yeah, the reason I know about that was because
copyright thing?
Yeah, because just like I said, just this year, I think it was, the people were attacking, fans were attacking Victor Miller because he was trying to get the rights back, or this copyright to Friday the 13th, because he wrote the original Friday the 13th. And immediately I kind of thought, well, he's a guy who created one of the biggest franchises ever in horror, Friday the 13th. I thought he was probably in the right. So then someone explained the whole thing. It was a lawyer who was, anyway, it was a long story, but he explained the whole thing, and it was, like you said, it was about the 35-year thing, and it was in his right, because he was paid $9,000 to write Friday the 13th, and that's all the money he ever got for it. And, to think Friday the 13th, obviously, all these movies they made, he should have made something off it. I am too.
I'm on his side. So good. Why were they attacking him?
Because there's a video game Friday the 13th.
He didn't make the movie?
Well, there's a video game Friday the 13th out that people like, and it can't continue while this is in court. So it's just kind of like people they're mad that they can't play their video game, but it's like, this is this guy's life, and he created it.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Well, it's like, is he going to court, or is he using this copyright?
He's using the copyright thing, but the guy who,
because you don't have to go to court for that. It's automatic.
Well, what happened was
2 years notice.
He did all that, but then I forget who's the guy who owns the rights to Friday the 13th, Chris something. He challenged it, and because they said usually it never goes to court because they just work out a deal, but this guy challenged it, so it has to go to court.
No, but if it's probably not in the time period, because they can't challenge it. It's totally, well, they could, and they could make it difficult.
Yeah, I mean, they explained the whole thing, and actually, David came up what you said about, because Sean Cunningham, that's who owns it. He's saying that Victor Miller was for hire, so that's why he's challenging it.
My cousin. Yeah, I knew Sean, and my cousin was the art director on the movie.
Oh, okay.
I think she was, but anyway, it's so long ago. Sean Cunningham was a good guy. Anyway, I don't know. I guess they could cause trouble by trying to say it was work for hire.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Because then you can't do it, and that was what my lawsuit that I won was about with this other script. Because work for hire, they have to prove that they took money out of your salary for Social Security, and there are like 9 things they have to prove.
Yeah.
So I suppose they'd cause trouble just to fight it.
Yeah.
So you could do Friday the 14th.
Exactly, right.
Friday the Thursday the 12th.
Right.
Saturday.
I think there was a movie Saturday the 14th. It was kind of like a spoof on Friday the 13th.
Well, it was probably.
Yeah.
There's everything you think of, someone will know. It's, whatever.
Yeah.
Do you want to do a movie ever? I know you do voices and stuff.
That just come up recently. Some people I've had on the show asked me to do some stuff, which was very fun to do. I have a lot of ideas for movies. It would be. I actually, the last couple of years, I was working on a documentary with another person who then quit. and so I have all this footage. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it. I might finish it.
Well, just do it.
Mm-hmm.
Do it. Is it a good subject?
Yeah, so it started...
No?
Yeah, no, I think it is. And him quitting... That's my... Well, maybe I shouldn't say... I'll tell you off air. I probably shouldn't say it on air like you were saying earlier. But I'll run it by you to let me know if it's a good idea. But I have, I have some silly ideas for silly horror movies, and a lot of people make shorts now. That seems like a popular thing, and they even have festivals where they show shorts.
Yeah,
and,
I know.
I don't know if there's if you make any money making a short. I never know what you do with them. Like once they're at because you couldn't sell like a DVD with like a 10-minute short. Like maybe you could, but I couldn't imagine anyone would buy it with like a 10-minute short on it. I never understand what they do with them.
Get a YouTube channel, put it on that, make a little few bucks, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. I make shorts. I made 3 of them at film school.
Mm-hmm.
And that one breakfast, all those things. And then I made the one in San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
But that was it.
Mm-hmm.
I never really wanted to. Like, I don't want to write short stories. I want to write a book.
Yeah. One thing that is
Although
cool
I did
lately.
make short stories.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'll say one thing that is cool about shorts. Sometimes they'll take a collection of them and then make an anthology movie with them, which that's kind of a neat idea, I think.
Yeah, but I don't really like them. So I want to get into something.
Mm-hmm.
I believe you should immerse people in what you're doing, and not just for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then pull out of it and start over. I don't like that.
I understand.
I don't like watching them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to read short story books for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
I have some sci-fi. Although there's one that's really cool, and I don't remember the name of it, but it's an old one in sci-fi about cars. Mm-hmm. And I remember one of the stories is that freeways in Los Angeles got so busy and traffic got so snarled, they just left all the cars in and built another road on top of them. I wonder that was a great short story, and it's in a great book. I have it someplace, but I don't remember what it was called. So if it's a really good one, then I like it. But generally, I like to be immersed in the immersive experience. I like.
It's hard to have a story arc in like a 5 or 10 minute story arc or character arc of anything. There's ones that work. I know. When they did the ABCs of Death, they were hard to get in for each one's only like a minute or two, and it's like what can you really do in like 2 minutes besides maybe just have like some kind of it's like basically a death scene. Each one's a death scene, and that's not very exciting to watch over and over. Well, at least not for me anyway.
It doesn't involve you; it just shows you stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't know. But you should, if you want to do something, now it's easy to do it. You get cameras, and when I started and do it in 35 millimeter, you had to buy film and go to the lab and pay a fortune. Now you could do it with just like a little your phone. You could do it, iPhone.
Yeah, you probably could, right?
You make a movie. My son made little short things with his iPhone.
Oh yeah,
it was really good. So yeah. But animation and everything he does. Yeah. So you can do that. So just go take your phone and probably any phone. I don't know. And just go make a movie with it.
Well, I have a nice camera. I can use my camera here. We have a pretty good camera. It'd probably be better than my phone.
Well, what else do you need? You have a computer with an editing program?
Yes. And I do my own editing.
Around? What else do you need?
Some people. And
you have people. Other people where you live?
Oh, yeah.
You have a nice setting by the water. Come on. Everybody should just go out and do movies, even if they're 2 minutes long. My first movie was 3 minutes long. It got a lot of praise, actually, because it was, the whole thing was, well, it's actually, I like that movie. and it was, I put a camera looking at the sky, and then it was a film school. We did it on the roof of the film school. I have 4 people dressed in like World War I uniforms, and they come along and they look down at the camera, and then they pick him up, and what's happened is they're putting him on a stretcher, and they walk around, and then they lower him into a coffin and close the lid. It's all done from the point of view of the guy on the stretcher, the dead guy, and it goes black at the end. It's the end. It's 3 minutes, and they showed it at the film school, and some guest said it was genius, and that's the only time I've been called genius. My first film. But what happened was we shot the whole thing, and it was perfect. And then the guy doing the camera, it was an old 16mm Bolex, put his hand in the changing bag, and then suddenly, oh shit! And he opened the bag, and the film came out as like a accordion thing because it didn't go on the take-up reel. So we had to go up and do it again. And then the police came because they had guns on their shoulders, and someone had seen the middle of London on the roof, seen guys with guns walking around the roof. So the police came, and got in trouble. But I finally got it done. I had to shoot it twice.
Uh-huh.
And the second time the clouds moved, so it had to do dissolves in it. The first time it was one shot and it was perfect, but couldn't duplicate that.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of it is a spontaneous thing. Like in a Galaxina, there's this one thing where they're sitting around the table, and the captain walks in, and they all stand up, and then they all sit down, and we did the rehearsal. Avery Schreiber, who was a clown, they sat down, he jumped up again, they all jumped up again, he sat down and went up and down, up and down. It was the most hilarious thing. And then we tried to do it when we were shooting. They never got it right because it wasn't spontaneous, and I had to give up on it. We did it like 20 times. It never came out the way it did when no one knew it was going to happen.
Uh-huh.
So that's another quick story about filmmaking.
Mm-hmm. Well, for Galaxina 2, I would like to see some more commercials in the movie, because I got a big kick out of the commercial for the magnesium claws with the grandma in it. So when you're writing it,
I don't know about that. I haven't thought about that because it's kind of a different. It's more like a superhero movie.
I gotcha.
With action and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. Maybe I can do something there. It's a different tone.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's good or bad, but I don't know. I'm playing with it. I'm writing this, and I might change it, and I keep going back and adding and changing things, and I don't know. Maybe I could do some commercials, actually.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
I'll see.
Right.
I don't know. Fiddling with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when I wrote Galaxina, I had like a few days to write the script.
Mm-hmm.
Or a couple of weeks or something, and this one I have 2 years, so I can play around and try things.
Uh-huh.
But the whole thing there was time. We had 20-day shoot, and it was during California rainstorms when houses were coming off the hill.
Mm-hmm.
So we lost a lot of days shooting, and instead of giving me more days, they just ripped pages out of the script. So to me, it moved slowly because I couldn't shoot everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had some really far-out, crazy comedy stuff, which I'm going to put in now, and they thought it was too far out, and they wouldn't let me do it.
Mm-hmm. Now you can do it.
It's like
I said you can do it now.
Yeah, I always had like a little... Yeah, I can.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I had a little dog on Avery Schreiber's leg in a spacesuit humping his leg through the whole movie. They didn't like that. I don't know if I'll do that now. Things like that I had. It was always there, the dog going up and down on his leg, sometimes in the spacesuit, sometimes not. I had craziness stuff that was a little more far out. Now someone's going to put it in the movie. I shouldn't have told them. Huh?
I like it.
Like, I don't want to say the title of my horror thriller I'm writing because someone will go do that, and no one's done it, and it's an obvious thing someone should have done.
Okay.
So I'm not saying it.
Yeah. And it might be really topical come 2020 with Space Force launching, and it'll be a look into the future.
Oh. Yeah, actually, remember I told you mentioned 2001? And
yeah, 2001,
I had someone that was in it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't actually remember his name. He was in film school with me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how long ago it was. Anyway, and there's an actor who a lot of actors go to film school. It's like Michael Gothard. I don't know if you know who he is, but he was in a series in an English series, which I wrote the presentation for. But he was there at the film school. But anyway, there's this Italian guy who was probably the handsomest guy you've ever seen. He looked like Rudolph Valentino. He was like a little mustache and all that. And he was incredibly handsome, but he was like 4'11" or 4 something. He was short, small, but incredibly handsome. So he came in one day and he said, I got a part. I'm in a movie. And it was 2001. And do you remember how it opens?
Yeah, with the monkeys.
That's him.
Oh, really? That's awesome.
He was the chimp, the main chimp guy, because he was little and he fit in the suit, but he had this handsome face that had a mask on it. It was a shame.
Yeah. That's pretty wild.
So anyway,
yeah.
So it goes. The showbiz. That's showbiz.
But while we're on the subject, what are your thoughts on the movie 2001?
On the movie?
Yeah.
It was a great movie. Yeah, I loved it.
It was very cool. I saw it
I haven't seen it in a long time.
Yeah. It was...
How was it that... I probably saw it on a big screen, too, because everything was a big screen then.
Sure. Right.
How do you feel the difference of seeing something on a small screen and a big screen?
To me, there's no difference. I always get sad when I see people online on my Facebook, if I say I'm going to go see a movie and they say, oh, why don't you just watch it, whatever. There's no comparison to me. There's nothing like watching the movie on the big screen. It's still one of my favorite experiences to watch, even if it's a movie I've seen a bunch of times.
Yeah, I shot Galaxina in Panavision. It's the giant widescreen. See, widescreen's really 1.85. And the Panavision is 2.33 to 1 or 2.35 to 1, depending on what country you're in. But when I used to see Galaxina on a big screen, giant screen, the curtain opens and it keeps opening and opening and opening. It's really wide, and that's why I did it, to have that big look, and I love that.
Yeah.
And then again, that's why I do things with the sound, like what I did with Spooky House. The sound spinning around the whole theater or the room, because it's back to that immersive experience. And which is probably why I don't like shorts. Time to get immersed.
Yeah, there's a lot of things, I think, when you're watching it on the big screen. Like you said, you get immersed in it, and some of it is because it's right there. It's so big you can't really escape from it. You can't, go and multitask and look on your computer or your phone. It's right there in front of you, and it's taking up all your senses pretty much. And
you don't pause.
Yeah,
you
right.
Don't pause.
Yeah.
Go to the bathroom. You just deal with it somehow. No, I got to pause and go eat lunch. I don't know. You don't do that. It's a total different. And I get, like, my wife gets upset because when I watch something on TV, I turn all the lights off. And she likes lights on. She could watch something with lights on. I can't.
I agree. You have a nice dark and silent.
It's not the same.
I agree 100%. I don't know how people watch like a whole movie on their phone or something. I don't see how that could be enjoyable. To watch
what?
I don't see how it could be enjoyable to watch a movie on your phone. It would be so small and maybe a video clip on YouTube, but to watch an hour and a half movie or 2 hour movie on your phone, I just don't see how that could be enjoyable.
No.
Yeah.
Well, maybe if it's the only thing you have to.
Sure.
You have a choice. I mean, look at the size of a giant IMAX screen. Compare that to your phone. Like what?
Yeah. Exactly.
But maybe in the future, I should put this in the script. They just watch it all in their head.
That's probably where it'll go eventually.
Actually, I kind of have that in it already, but another story.
Yeah.
I just gave away something. The more I talk, I'll have no movie left.
But I am happy, though. There's a couple theaters that show, art house movies or older movies in original 35 millimeter. And they're usually really packed, which I'm happy about, because I'm glad that people go and support them.
Well, recently, like a year or two ago, I don't remember anywhere, they had a Melting Man screening at the Silent Theater in Hollywood, even though it's not silent. And I, went spoke after it. But it was fun.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed that. That's fun to do.
Yeah. The 2001 was 70
else you want to
millimeter.
know?
I think we're good, but I'll say the 2001 I went to see was in 70 millimeter, and it was really cool because there was an older guy next to me, and he told me he went to see the movie when it was released in '68 at that theater, at the Coolidge Theater, and I was like, well, that's really cool. 50 years later, here he's at the same theater watching the movie again. It was pretty neat.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, or he just made it up. I don't know.
But have theaters.
Yes.
I'm glad there are still theaters. You never know; it's going to go someday.
I know.
It's all going to change.
Well, I had a great time talking to you. It's been a lot of fun.
I don't know.
It's been very interesting.
Yeah, it's fun.
Cool.
So this is going to be on Thursday?
Yep, it'll be up Thursday. We can listen. And then after that, people can listen whenever they like. They can download it and do whatever they want.
Yeah, no, I got that. Well, good. Well, you did a good job.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. You did as well.
Make a movie now.
All right. I'm going to go out and make my movie.
Yeah, go make a movie called Movie on the 4th of July. Sorry.
Very good. All right. I appreciate you doing this. Thanks.
Okay, and thank you for asking me.
No, well, yeah, I appreciate it. Okay.
Oh, just so you know, a little quick thing, since he's still on there. When I was shooting Galaxina in the infrared film, there was an orange filter and a red filter that looked the same. And when we did, there's a chase across the planet with the biker gang chasing them, and then they stole their god, which was the Harley with the sidecar, and they're chasing them. And it's one wide shot, and we had a second camera doing tighter stuff and inserts, and the assistant put the wrong lens, the filter on, which was the red filter instead of the orange, and they looked the same, but they were very different. And when we looked at it, in the dailies, the whole screen was just red. There was no image because of the infrared film and the red filter. And the problem was with that film, I mean, it was a whole nightmare to get, and everybody said, don't do it. And I just insisted. Like, the lab said it leaves a residue in the bath because of the infrared, whatever is sensitive to. And we worked out that just before they dumped the bath, they'd do the processing of it. So that meant we left the location. It was 3 days later when we saw there was no image and we couldn't do it over. So in that scene, it's all one big shot, and it could have been a lot of intercutting with tighter shots. So when you take chances, you have to risk losing things. So that's the end of this.
All right.
Finished now.
All right. Thanks again, Bill. I really enjoyed it. Thanks.
Okay. Take care.
You as well.
Enjoy and keep going.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Well, this is Barbara Magnolfi of Suspiria, and you're listening to Without Your Head.